Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes radio network.
FM, the voice of consciousness. And this show is where you will find tools that you can use to change and transform your life. I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I am an energy healer and an intuitive life coach. But to be honest, I've kind of had to look at this. I'm really an energy alchemist because everything is energy. And when you can transform the energy in your life, especially around your history and your past experiences, your entire life changes for the better. And if you would like to know more about me and the work that I do, or even book a private session via Skype, phone, or in person if you're in Kirkland, Washington, just visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net, just like the name of the radio show, Intuitive Transformations with an S.net. So today is Sunday, April 3rd, and April is Autism Awareness Month. Now, if you've been listening to my show for a while, then you know that I am the mother of two beautiful young adult autistic sons. And I know that unless you have had a personal experience with autism, you may not fully understand how autism dramatically affects families and the amazing individuals who receive that diagnosis. And I know this because before I had my two beautiful sons years ago, I knew a family. They were very good friends of mine for many years, and their son was autistic. And I knew that their child was challenging, but I really had no idea what it was like raising and loving a child with autism until I experienced it firsthand myself. So in my effort to help raise autism awareness for the month of April, I want you to know that in the United States alone, about one in every 45 children are diagnosed with autism every year. Now, this is interesting because at the time that my oldest son, who is now 21 years old, was diagnosed in 1997, the rate of autism was only 1 in every 2,500 in the United States. So this is a 50% increase in less than 20 years. And yet no one, and I mean no one, has a handle on what causes autism or how to eradicate it. So I would like to invite all of my listeners to just visit autismspeaks.org, that's autismspeaks.org, to learn more about this developmental disorder that is prohibiting an entire generation of children the opportunity to live a normal and healthy life. It's a great resource for families with autistic children, and it's a great way for people who interact with autistic individuals in their community to learn more about it, and really just for anyone who is just curious and would like to know more about this baffling disorder that has significantly impacted so many families around the world. Again, that website is autismspeaks.org, and I really do hope and pray that one day there will no longer be a need to raise awareness of autism in any country, anywhere in the world. So again, April, Autism Awareness Month, and go out and visit autismspeaks.org. So let's lighten the mood a little bit because today I have a really fun and exciting show to share with you. I am a lucky host to have Sarah Delamere Hurding joining me today on the show all the way from Ireland. And Sarah just happens to be one of Ireland's most well-known and respected psychics. And she and I are going to talk about psychic abilities and if they can really be trusted. Now, as a psychic, I consider Sarah to be pretty fearless because she's allowed her psychic abilities to be tested and scrutinized over and over again, which is really quite remarkable. And I'm going to have her share a little bit about that on the show as well. In addition, she's going to share some predictions with us, and I have a few questions to ask her myself. And also, I don't want to forget this. Sarah is going to share something very special. She has a great gift offering for all of you listening that she's going to talk about toward the end of the show. So make sure that you stay tuned for the entire show because this show is going to be filled with a lot of great insights and information and then some really special gifts toward the end. So allow me to tell you a little bit more about this remarkable woman with a lovely accent from Ireland before I ask her to join us. Sarah Delamere Hurding is a highly accurate and powerful seer, mystic, and healer. In addition, Sarah is a life coach, a published author, a consciousness facilitator, a television personality, and a former radio show presenter on the World Puja Network. Sarah writes astrology columns for many international publications, including the Irish Independent, Sunday World, RTE Guide, Social and Personal Magazine, Cork Echo, Belfast Telegraph, and is a featured writer for OMTimes magazine. This is one busy lady. Sarah is one of the first psychics in the world to openly prove her skills on camera. She predicted the full lineup of one of Simon Cowell's first music reality TV bands, known as Six, on the show Irish Pop Stars. She did this while seated at a distance with no one but the cameraman in the room. Sarah sealed her prediction in an envelope, and the envelope was opened on camera months later, revealing that her predictions were 100% correct. With her verifiable body of work, Sarah Delamere Hurding is one of the most monitored and on-the-record psychics in the world. She is known as the psychic that other psychics trust, which is why many high-profile celebrity clients recognize her abilities and use her services. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. That's some intro there.
Well, I just love you, Sarah, and I love your accent. And I really do appreciate that. I know there's a significant time difference between my Pacific Standard Time being 6 p.m. and I don't know, what time is it where you are right now?
10 past 2 in the morning.
Oh, it's just a little wee bit in the morning.
Okay, I think I've lost track of my time zone. I don't know what it is. I don't think I have one now.
Well, I'm glad you're really flexible with that because that allowed you to be on the show today. So I know that you have many other talents and abilities, including, in addition to your psychic gifts. But for the sake of today's show, let's just focus on your world as a psychic, as a well-known psychic. And I know that for the most part, everyone kind of has their own idea of what a psychic is. I mean, some people, they've only had an experience with a psychic from what they've seen in the movies or on TV. There's a lot of mystery that kind of shrouds this title of psychic. So I'm hoping that you can explain to everyone exactly what a psychic is.
Sure. I mean, most people have heard of the clairs. Everyone has heard of clairvoyant. I mean, that is generally what people call a psychic. The clairvoyant is the clear seer. There's other terminology amongst the clairs. There's clairsentience, which is a feeling. I think this is a sense that all of humanity have, is this degree of clairsentience, degree of feeling, the hunch when the hairs on the back of your neck bristle, or you get an extra sensory perception on something. It's a feeling sense. Clairaudience, of course, where you hear things. That's not something to tell too many people. There's claircognizance, which is when you just know something. That can be, it's slightly different from a premonition, like, say, a telepathic connection of a mother and son. If the son's in danger, the mother kind of suddenly knows it. That's kind of like telepathy. Claircognizance is connected to that, but it's more profound somehow. It's when, for example, I talk about degrees of knowing. When I'm doing a reading, I kind of warm up, I kind of go deeper, and I get to a point where I just kind of know what's right for the client, or what's right. I mean, going about my daily life, I get these kind of ding moments. I mean, I think we all do, because we all kind of know our own intuition. But when you can apply it to help people in the context of their lives, it's a wonderful gift, that's for sure. So, does everyone have psychic ability? I'd like to say yes, but I think people are born with a gift, to be fair. I'm not sure it can fully be trained if you have none of it, I talk about it in terms of artistry, really. We can all paint some kind of picture, a child paints something quirky, fun, curious. There's adequate drawings we can do, adequate. I don't want to call any other fellow psychic adequate, but you get my drift. There's degrees of speciality. It's like, what hairdresser do you go to? There's degrees of speciality. What car mechanic do you go to? Do you go to one you can trust, or do you go to one that might do a fairly good job but not necessarily quite as good as it should be? That kind of thing. So there's a whole spectrum, not for me to judge who is in what category, but that's kind of how it works.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, everyone has some stronger vent within those clairs that they lean into. And when we return from the break, we're going to continue this conversation with Sarah Delamere Hurding. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Intuitive Transformations radio show on OMTimes Radio Network FM. Before we went to the break, Sarah Delamere Hurding, who is a psychic, a well-known psychic who lives in Ireland, was sharing about the different clairs and in her definition of how she was, of what a psychic is and what different abilities go into that, fall under that title of being a psychic. And so, Sarah, before we went to the break, you were saying everyone kind of has their own speciality. And so for you, do you focus on one of those gifts? Do you have many of those gifts? Tell me about those gifts, and how did you first discover that you in fact had them?
Yeah, I mean, any psychic that you would ask that to would probably say, well, I didn't really know I was different, or in any way kind of, I thought these experiences were normal. I mean, I wasn't aware really as I was growing up as a child that what I was experiencing would have had the label called psychic to it. I mean, I just kind of knew who was phoning for Dad. He's a doctor. I kind of said, Dad, oh, private or patient. I used to know whether it was a patient or not, but I think my first marked experience was between ages of 8 and 11 in my room at night. My room was half underground. I used to see a shimmering outline of a Napoleonic soldier in my room at night. And I've always been quite detached from being psychic, actually, observant of it and what it is. And even at that age, I kind of went, oh, okay. I kind of didn't really overanalyze it. I don't think I didn't even tell my mum and dad, actually. I just kind of thought, oh, okay, there you are then. But I used to leave the light on. I suppose I must have been a little bit afraid maybe, but by the time the morning came, the light was off. And I said to Mum, did you turn my light off last night? And she said no. So I presume he was quite... a caring soldier, turned the light off once I was asleep. I don't know, it was kind of just something that was confirmed that I wasn't seeing things, nor was I dreaming, because when we did history at school at age 11, I found out with the local history that the house was built on the site of a Napoleonic fort. So I was kind of clearly... it's just an example of how children can have this innate experience, and it's totally authentic. They may not know that they're experiencing it. My sister, actually, when she would see angels above her head when she was 4, a similar kind of observation, and she kind of told Mum and Dad about it later. Children have a wonderful open receptivity to spirit. And I think it's a shame the world knocks it out of them. However, many people, the people that are really authentically psychic and have that route and path in life, obviously then it develops, sometimes gets, very intense. I mean, the most marked sense I had in the waking hours was age 11 when I went to the school fair. There was a kind of spin the wheel and you had to choose a number. And I chose 5. And I knew it was going to hit. And sure enough, it did. And I was able to take Mum and Dad a bottle of champagne home. And I noticed Mum and Dad's reaction was interesting. They really downplayed it. Of course, they would have known what a psychic was. But I went to church, an evangelical family. Now my nan, very intuitive, my dad, very intuitive, but they just wouldn't have used the word psychic. I think Dad still hates the word psychic. This knowing that the number 5 was going to hit was amazing. I suppose I was quite pleased with myself, and I think I was a bit shocked that it was so downplayed. I said, Mum, I knew that number was going to come up, and she kind of mumble. It really, I mean, they liked the champagne, but it wasn't then squashed out of me. Not aware of anything that was squashed out of me at that point, but it certainly didn't get praise. I'm not saying it should have done either. I suppose it was a bit concerning, but it was an observation for me. So, lots of little sort of anecdotal stories like that along the way in terms of observing that I knew certain things and perhaps other people didn't. I mean, it was just as simple as that, really. I didn't go out of my way to... Obviously, at a younger age, now I say I didn't help people, but actually at school, I noticed people come to me when they had problems. I was always a bit of an outsider. I guess I still am. I live quite kind of privately connected to nature. That's really important to me. people come to me when they have problems. It's kind of, and then my role as a psychic is to use the energy work. I've moved much more into energy work. I'm a healer also. So it's not just information. A good psychic, yes, can give you a great reading, come up with authentic prediction for you, predict, tell you what's going to happen if you stay on this life track. I've kind of developed quite unique services there where I'm using energy work to really improve people's lives, solve their problems, co-create their life, if you like. It's even beyond life coaching at times. It's quite amazing what happens through intention and through connection with the person. It's like I become the person's best friend, or like I'm a professional in their pocket. When I'm working with someone, they can text me night and day. Obviously, I put some boundaries up at times when overtired. I always want to deliver 100% for that person. As if they're a family member or a close friend. So it's much more about working with energy now for me than even predicting, really.
I love that, because I do believe that everything is energy.
Yeah, totally. It totally is, yes. People will say, is my destiny set in stone? I mean, I used to think, oh, yeah, certain points in our lives, we have a multiple choice. Do I do A, B, C, or D? A psychic would be able to tell you, oh, actually, you're going to choose A. I mean, I still think that's pretty much the case. However, I have noticed that with working with energy, you can do a reading for somebody. You can look at how things will pan out for them. Now, basically, it is a case of if they stay on that particular road. What's strange is at times you can see energetically an opening where you can really help them either get what they want. That might sound a bit of, gosh, can you really do that? But actually, yes, you can. I think many of us are aware of clearing and how our unconscious can trip us up at times. And many conscious people have done a lot of clearing work, getting all the gunk out of our unconscious in the hope of manifesting, co-creating the life that we deserve, the life that's abundant for us. And so my work kind of taps into that kind of place where we're all at now, or where many of us are at now. Now, some people accept different levels of help. As you know yourself, Sylvia, sometimes they need counseling, guidance, information. Sometimes information is all they need. Men especially like to kind of make their own decisions. Some do give themselves over to a strange psychic lady in terms of, can you help me out with this? I actually do work with a lot of business men, women, pragmatic people that recognize that I kind of can apply this energy work in a grounded way to, co-create with them. So it's immensely rewarding. Obviously, along the way, sometimes there are karmic lessons or not exactly stumbling blocks, but lessons for the client, perhaps, in terms of understanding. In fact, the work develops their own understanding of spirituality and how then it's empowering for them. How then they can empower themselves so they don't need someone like me then, ultimately. So it's kind of becomes like a training for them as well. As much as I can sort of demonstrate, I wouldn't claim to know how the universe works, but sometimes it's always dangerous to claim that ultimately, because then it'll trip you up. But, in terms of kind of helping someone move through their process, their emotional process, I can offer a lot of spiritual advice and guidance there. Sometimes someone will want to, get back with a partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and I would see from their reading, well, actually, this really isn't in your best interest at this point. But, then I go into the psychology of that relationship and say, well, yes, you could give it another go, but you would have to very much bear in mind this person's psychology, and the onus would be very much on you to do all the work. Do you really want that? You're kind of then giving them a conscious decision. And then more often than not, sometimes, of course, they do that, and it's a valid decision to revisit that if they have the extra understanding, because so many relationships actually do fall short because of a psychology mismatch, not exactly an incompatibility, but simply because of misunderstanding. So this work for a psychic enables you to, well, I do a bit of astrology as well, so I can read into character profiling, and then kind of help the person understand, what happened, what could happen, is it in their best interest, and then, then energetically have a game plan for that person. Sometimes one can project and give somebody a game plan for the next decade, or, they may have goals for the next year or so. So it's a bit like writing out your structure, your schedule. We're not God, but we can co-create our lives with God. I do believe that strongly. But there's also this need for us to be receptive, humble to what the universe is doing with us, to also understand that the universe does know best, certainly knows the best shortcuts for us, even to get our heart's desire. The universe, the more I do this work, the more I see what wonderful shortcuts the universe has. And really all that we're required to do, I think, to develop and understand our own psychic ability is to be receptive, to be a clear connection and channel to source, to God, to be available in order for the messages to come through, so that we can surrender to that. Obviously, we need to keep our feet on the ground, but I don't think we should second guess or overanalyze. I've noticed with certain clients that it's very difficult. Oh, I do it myself. I'm a Virgo. It's difficult to get out of my own head sometimes, and clients do this too. They have a faith and trust in me that I can deliver for them, and I sure can. But it's kind of like sometimes they kind of start doing so there's a lot of counseling work and pragmatic work as well as energetic work. So it's a balance. That's what life is. It's the balance between our psychic ability, our groundedness, and then our sort of pragmatism and our ability to apply this to our daily lives. So always balance is crucial with the work.
I love all of that because you're really multi-layered.
Yeah, it is multi-layered, and I have to have quite an acute antennae for the client's needs and for where they're at, because the service has to be pitched to where they're at.
So we're going to take a short break. When we return, more of Sarah Delamere Hurding. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
To read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, everyone. We're back on the air. I apologize for that. I had some technical difficulties. I'm going to go ahead and get Sarah back as well. So hold on. You are listening to Sylvia Henderson on Intuitive Transformations on OMTimes Radio, and we're getting Sarah back in just a moment.
Hello?
Hello, Sarah. I apologize. I don't know what happened, but
Okay.
very interesting day today.
Yes. Spirit having its say.
Spirit is having its say. So now that I have you back on the air, and I want to apologize to everyone again while I was getting Sarah back and trying to figure out what was going on technically, I'm just going to blame it on the sunspots and the sun flares, whatever those are that have been predicted for this week, because that has never happened before, ever.
High octane energy.
Apparently. So, and I feel terrible because we had just gone into a break, and before we went to the break, you were talking about all the amazing things that you do, because you do so much more than just give readings. You really are a full service provider in terms of helping people shift their energies and create what they want to create, and really healings as well. Unfortunately, we only have less than 30 minutes left in the show.
That's okay. I mean, I said quite a lot of what I did, so.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
real quick before we go into predictions, I'm wondering if you can just kind of speak to what people should do when they just get hunches.
Yeah, I mean, it's even a biblical response to that. The Bible says test the spirits, and I think it's very important that it's a case also of know thyself. I mean, everybody will have their own reference point, how they've lived their life, what has proven to be accurate intuition, what happens when you ignore a strong intuition. We all have spirit reaching to connect with us, and it is important to test the information. So it's kind of really how accurate is the information. Some people will say, oh, shall I go to this psychic? Are they accurate? Well, they are as good as their last reading, as good as the information they get. Same with, yourself going about the day. The universe, though, when it's gently nudging us to notice something, it will nudge you. If you ignore something, it'll come back. Spirit doesn't impose upon your free will, nor does it sort of impose if you're not really listening. However, if something's really imperative, it will just keep coming at you until it's shouting in your ear. If it's really something that you have to attend to, for your destiny, it could be something to do with a health issue that you're ignoring, a niggle that you're just ignoring because you don't want to face or deal with it. Your body will rebel in that case, if that's the case. So it's kind of like, it's a case of listening in to your inner ear, your sense, tuning in. I mean, it's possible to be mindful and available and receptive every minute of every day, and yet still be grounded and go about the practical day. So it's really a training, an inner training. I always wonder how much these skills can be taught. I think they can be monitored and observed in groups, and obviously there are wonderful teachers who can help develop, say, mediumistic skills for people that are psychic mediums. But at the end of the day, your reference point as a person and as a psychic is yourself. It's kind of like I have a wonderful quote, which is really quite funny. I won't say who said it to me, but they said, well, who do you answer to? And I kind of said, well, God, if you like. And they went, well, that's just not good enough. And I thought, oh, okay. It's funny. It's really funny. It's kind of like, it's nearly showing you, well, how do we know? how do we know we can trust ourselves? How do we know we can trust that psychic? How do we know?
That's the bottom line, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because it really is about trust. And so many of us growing up were taught not to trust that intuition, that guidance, because it tends to be quite often counterintuitive. It may not always be the most logical.
Well, I think actually the second guessing is the counterintuitive.
Yeah. We get into our heads, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, please stay tuned. I promise you this time we will return after the break in just a few moments. This is Sylvia Henderson with Sarah Delamere Hurding.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
For the break, this is Sylvia Henderson on Intuitive Transformations on OMTimes Radio with Sarah Delamere Hurding, all the way from Ireland, and she is one of Ireland's well-known psychics, and she has been highly tested and highly scrutinized, and she has done a lovely job explaining how her gifts have evolved and all that she has to offer. And before I go into some questions I have about predictions, Sarah, can you very briefly just let everyone know how they can find you, contact you, and I believe you have a special offering for those who are listening as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, you can find me over at sarahdelamere.com. That's Sarah with an H, S-A-R-A-H, Delamere, DELAMER.com. No E on the end of Delamere for the website. Yes, for listeners that make it to the end of the show, actually it's a shorter show now, so if you email me through the website, there's a contact page on the website with the voucher magic, let's use the word magic. I'll give you a 30% discount off any of my services. There's a whole range of services there, different prices, and email readings, packages, so anyone using the voucher word magic, I'll give 30% off the particular service that catches your eye.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for providing that generous offer for all of those who are listening to this show. And so is there an expiration date on that? I'm asking because there is a podcast and this is going to be available.
That's okay. Anyone that catches the podcast in the next month. I presume it's, how long is it up for?
Well, it stays in podcasts indefinitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be on iTunes and everything.
Let's keep it for people that listen to the show. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about predictions for 2016. Now, as you know, I live here in the United States, and I'm sure that we are making the news all over the world with our political situation here in this country.
Absolutely, yeah.
So with today's current events, it's probably more the divided states of America, just because it's been so crazy. And so just curious, who do you believe is going to win the Democratic Party nomination to run for president? Will it be Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
I'm afraid my answer is not going to be popular, let's say, in the sort of conscious community, because I know there's so many people that want Bernie to, and logically speaking, I was looking at their astrology and their charts because I knew you were going to ask me that. I must be psychic.
You must be.
I can see that it's going to be Trump versus Hillary. I mean, that's going to be a stage show, but it's not necessarily too hideous, really. Well, it is and it isn't. It's kind of like, spirit can use anything.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I mean, I won't say anything legally compromising. I mean, but Trump, let's just give him something. At least he tells the truth. He won't be president, though. I do think I actually predicted Hillary as first female president years ago. I mean, we could wish it's Bernie, and we can all put our energy behind that. Absolutely. So this might be an example of we can co-create something, but I think there is a kind of destiny with big kind of world events like this that we can affect things up to a point, but actually this is where the universe is mysterious. I think probably even with this situation, let's give Hillary that she has some experience in the White House. Let's give her that. Let's give it that she's actually a very artful politician. She can make something pretty close to being untruthful sound quite plausible. So that's a skill.
As well as let's just give her the fact that she's not Trump.
Let's give her that too. Let's give her that she's also fought for women's rights, and that she is articulate and that she's intelligent. She's Scorpio. She's got the phoenix rising from the ashes. Yes, she's obviously had her moments and her compromising situations, but show me a politician that hasn't. Bernie, he's I don't know. I mean, he's wonderful. He's a Virgo. He's practical. He's obviously produced in his roles as mayor, Senate. He's done such great work. I just think there's a face-off between Bernie and Hillary going on. Obviously, I couldn't see Bernie playing dirty at all, but they're beginning to sort of bounce off each other and kind of, she doesn't want to do a debate, he doesn't want to do a debate, It's
that
kind of
resisting energy. It's that, if you resist, persist kind of thing going on. I mean,
there is a kind of destiny for this to be Hillary, you see, and can we affect it as what we would like? I guess we could, get close, but that's not really good enough. I mean, it's going to, put it this way, it's going to be wonderfully entertaining, Trump and Hillary.
I don't know. Well, that's because you're in Ireland, honey, sitting on the sidelines here in the United States.
True.
It's really far from entertaining at this point.
No, I know. No, I'm following it closely, actually. My spirit's kind of pretty much in America at this stage. So I'm following it really as if I live there. Well, it's not quite the same, but.
And then what do you see happening in the global economy? There's a lot of, fear being propagated in the media and amongst global economists. And so do you see the global economy correcting and stabilizing, or do you see...
Just looking at Ireland as a sort of microcosm. I mean, Ireland went through a huge crash, as did many parts of Europe. We had the Celtic Tiger boom. Property prices went way out of control. It's kind of quite a good sort of template for an economy and a recovery. And it is in recovery, a steady recovery. It won't be the boom time again, but it's kind of property market turning around, things building. And to me, it doesn't feel I feel it's scaremongering. I feel it's not quite as unstable as they're saying. Now, I know it's different in America. I think things are indeed quite chaotic and precarious in America. Now,
do you see that turning around any time soon?
Yes, I think actually either Hillary or Trump could turn that around. I mean, Trump actually, again, we can't say anything legally compromising, but he kind of does what he says on the tin. Well, obviously we don't like what it says on the tin, but he's actually an astute businessman. Well, he's not going to get the opportunity to correct the economy, I don't think, but oddly, I think he probably could. Hillary has huge backup. I mean, I'd love to say more about what's behind her and her destiny, but you know, I think it's only Jimmy Carter that didn't have, let's say, the connections behind the scenes. You know, this is why I say it's very likely Hillary, because every president has these, you know, behind the scenes connections, and this is what she has. Question is, can we break that and bring in someone like Bernie, or is it? I don't want to say in a way of giving up. You know, is it kind of the way of the world? Sometimes there has to be a balance of. I won't say dark and light, but these kind of polarities are kind of amplifying, let's say, with all this, you know, many of us are developing our consciousness. There's much 4D reality coming in. We have to be more grounded. Perhaps some of these political energies have a balancing role to play. The universe is clever, as I said previously, and knows more than we do. We might know what we might like as an ideal or a utopia, but in actual fact, for the balance of the structure of things, either one of these politicians could probably do something. I mean, actually, I believe Hillary is going to be good for the job. Don't forget, she's got Bill behind her. They actually have a ton of experience about. Having said that, you know, what's going to change if she's in there, you know?
Well, as long as there's a Democrat in the office, because that was my biggest concern, is that if Hillary wins the Democratic nomination, that people who really strongly support Bernie will throw their votes, because they're very strongly behind Bernie. It's quite a passionate experience for many of them.
I know it is, absolutely. It's possible. That's possible, but I think people should perhaps try to. Wearing one's heart on the sleeve is important, but maybe put a political hat on just for 5 minutes, and as well, you know, look at the history, look at the.
You're asking the American people to be rational, Sarah? Is that what you're saying? Suggesting? Okay.
I think they're a pragmatic bunch.
There are some.
It's so complicated. I mean, it's
complicated.
Here's me, an outsider, pontificating. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I'm following it on my level, but it is fascinating, I have to say. Yeah,
yes, it is. Well, you know, it's. I hate to say this, we're just about at the end of our show. We only have a minute or so left. I do want you to just mention your website, One World Metaphysicians. And that's oneworldmetaphysicians.com. And this is a list that you've put together of people that you really admire. And so just really in a couple of sentences, can you talk about that quickly?
Yeah, we have oneworldpsychics.com, and then there's the sister website, oneworldsmetaphysicians.com. Oneworldpsychics.com was, I was inspired to put that together after the Paris shootings, for a panel to shine the light on the world, and for a wonderful panel of people to be found. It's not a business. It's not in competition with anyone.
But it's really qualified individuals.
Qualified people at the top of their game, placed to sort of hold light together and be found. The more comprehensive panel is, oneworldmetaphysicians.com,
Beautiful. So everyone, we're coming to the end of our show. Thank you, Sela Delamere Hurding, for staying up and for dealing with technical issues and for being such a delightful guest.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please remember, go to sarahdelamere.com. That's DELAMER.com, Sarah with an H, to find out more about her. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And God bless. Bye-bye.